Okay guys, hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the Misinformation and Disinformation Bill. The bill aims to amend the Broadcasting Services Act 1992 to grant the Australian Communications Media Authority powers to combat online misinformation and disinformation. This bill is really scary, and I'm taking a really big interest in this because I'm the person who's going to be directly affected by this bill. This bill is a massive threat to freedom of speech. Now, I'm not just saying that because I like to get online and yap away and be controversial, not at all. I just think freedom of speech is possibly the most important thing that we have as a society, and any threat to it needs to be gone. Like, we can't threaten freedom of speech. That is the very core of a democratic society, and this bill tries to do that. It tries to chip away at it bit by bit, and eventually we're going to have no more left. Now, people will think that that's over dramatic and that's me just pushing my own agenda. It's just not. This bill, so many people have said it, it's so dangerous, and we need to be paying attention because the government is trying to push this through. They're trying to push it through really quickly because they know that there's mass criticism of it. Okay, so let's kind of take this bill apart. So the bill defines misinformation as content that is verifiable as false, misleading, or deceptive, and reasonably likely to cause or contribute to serious harm. Okay, let's take that definition. I have a problem with this because that definition is stupidly broad. What is serious harm? Why can this random government body that hasn't been elected by the people go around and start labeling things as misinformation, as false, as reasonably likely to cause serious harm? Where is this all coming from? Why is there no consistent framework as to how this is judged? This is a random group of people, as I said, random group of bureaucrats not picked by the people, and they're going to have all this power to randomly choose what we as the people can see and what we can't see on the internet. Now, that's scary. That is scary, mainly because random bureaucrats are usually not the smartest tools in the shed. They're not very fun. They don't have a very good sense of humor. They also don't have much common sense. I don't want them in charge of anything, let alone my freedom of speech, let alone what I can say to my audience on the internet. So they're saying the definition of serious harm is imminent harm to the Australian economy, harm to the public confidence in the banking system or financial markets, harm to the operation or integrity of an election or referendum process in Australia, harm to public health in Australia. Now that's a big one after COVID, including the efficacy and preventative health measures, i.e., you know what we're talking about. Vilification of a group in Australian society, intentionally inflicted physical injury to an individual, imminent damage to critical infrastructure, or disruption of emergency services, the imminent harm to the Australian economy. So that's basically everything. This random group of bureaucrats says that if you offend anything, all of those things that I listed, which encompasses everything in our society, then you could be in breach of this law. I mean, I'm online all day. I'm on Twitter, I'm on news sites, I'm on social media. I see breaches of all of these categories that I've just said, multiple, hundreds, thousands of times a day. How the hell are they going to police all of this? So ACMA is basically trying to be the police of social media. They will be given the power to make platforms report back on the measures they are taking to combat what is sometimes called fake news. So basically, they are telling X, Meta, Snapchat, whatever, they're saying to them, this is what is acceptable. If we think that you're not adhering to that, we are going to force you to adhere to that, our standards. We're going to force you to adhere to our standards of what we consider acceptable in combating fake news. And if you don't do that, we are going to fine you 5% of your global revenue. Can you imagine Elon Musk agreeing to this? I'm not sure of the legalities surrounding this. I don't know if Australia can actually fine Meta 5% of their global revenue, which would be in the billions. I don't know. I imagine that if you're Elon Musk, you're going to laugh at this. How can they enforce this? This is a massive overreach, and it's a massive policing of the internet. You can't police the internet, but that's what ACMA is trying to do. Imagine this random group of bureaucrats who no one knows who they are. They're faceless. They are trying to be the police of the internet, of these social media platforms, and saying, if you don't do what we say, you don't know who we are, but nonetheless, if you don't do what we say, this arbitrary definition of misinformation and disinformation that we put forward onto you, you have to give us 5% of your global revenue. Get absolutely effed. These definitions are stupidly broad. How do I know what I'm allowed to say now under these new laws? If I dare to criticize, I don't know, let's go back. Let's see what I could be in breach of. All right, let's pick a random one. Harm to public health in Australia. All right, let's take it back to COVID. During COVID, I first started my social media. I was talking about how ridiculous these lockdowns are. Now, I imagine under these laws, if we were back in 2020 and these laws existed, I would be in breach of them. Yet, now in 2024, it's come out that lockdowns were not necessary. So everything I was saying was correct. If I was in breach of them and they fined me or they took down my social media, whatever, I don't know what the repercussions of this are. But if I was punished because I was in breach of these random broad laws, now 3-4 years later, when in hindsight I'm actually correct, do I have the right to go back and sue ACMA? The government, particularly random bureaucrats in the government, are not God. They are not the be-all and end-all. They're not the moral compass of our society. They have absolutely no place telling us what we can and what we can't talk about, what is right and what's not right. And we learned that during COVID. That's why so many of us now hate the government. That's why so many of us don't believe anything that they say, and this is a global issue. There is a mass turning away from traditional government structures. No one believes politicians because during COVID, we found out that they were all working together against the people. Another one, vilification of a group in Australian society. Okay, if I say that those protesters, those disgusting protesters on the street calling for the death of Jews, defending and celebrating that Hezbollah leader. If I say that that is the wrong thing to do, will I then be in breach of vilification of a group in Australian society? Is that labelled as racial vilification because I'm genuinely concerned that people are supporting a terrorist organisation? Am I not allowed to say that anymore because someone there is going to say that I'm racist? God forbid, I think that we shouldn't be celebrating a terrorist. Sue me. And they probably will. And they'll probably win under these new laws. Do you see how this is a clear attack on freedom of speech? And Dr. Nick Coatsworth has come out attacking this bill because he has also been talking about COVID. He said, it's quite astonishing to me that after the pandemic, when we are all becoming acutely aware of facts that changed over the course of the pandemic, that we would find our parliament debating a bill where any number of legitimate concerns about public health policy could be branded misinformation by the government or the scientific orthodoxy of the moment. Yes, correct. Facts change. Not everything the government or the WHO or the World Economic Forum or the UN says is correct. Facts change over time. Look at Fauci. We all thought that he was the god of COVID. We all listened to exactly what he said. We hung off every word that he said because we were so scared that this disease was going to kill us all. And now it's come out that he was wrong on every single thing that he was saying. And I remember back then, if we said on social media anything about COVID, literally mention COVID or vaccines or lockdowns, we would have our account taken down. I had it. I was a victim of that. I had my first TikTok account taken down because I mentioned, I don't even remember now, I think it was something about vaccines. And, you know, back then everyone had to walk on eggshells because it was this scary thing that none of us could talk about or we'd die. And now I can talk about vaccines on TikTok and nothing will happen because everyone's realized that this whole thing was a bloody scam. It was an absolute sham that we all believed, and I will put my hand up. I was the first to believe it. But it's now come out. But now with time, so much more information has come out and we've all realized that the facts change. But imagine if we couldn't talk about the fact that the facts changed. Imagine if now we had this disinformation and misinformation bill, and whenever we spoke about COVID, our account would be taken down or we would get fined or punished. We would never know the information that we know today. And that's because information is fluid. As we learn more about a subject, we change. And that's the way it should be. And for the government and these random people to try and come in and block that evolution of information is total censorship, and it's against democracy. But secondly, it's against growth and learning. How do you think we grow throughout history? Why have we become a better people? Why have we become smarter? It's because we learn from history. And bills like these, they're trying to stop that from happening, and that's because they just want power. They want us under their thumb. They want to feed us the information that they want us to know and not go looking elsewhere for other facts, because with information comes power. They don't want us to have information because they don't want us to have power. Third concern I have about this is the draft bill defines any content that is authorized by government as being excluded content. Okay, you need to pay attention to this point because this is massive. This is basically saying that anything the government says can't be classified as misinformation or disinformation. I'm sorry, are we living in communist China? I'm not kidding. This is the stuff that communist countries do. This is the government basically saying nothing we say can ever be wrong. And we all know that that is a crock of shit because so much that the government has said has been proven wrong. Everything that governments around the world said about COVID was proven wrong. So I'm sorry, I don't have any faith in the political system anymore after that. And the craziest thing about this, and the reason I'm so passionate about it, is because there are exemptions. All right, the exemptions are, 1, traditional media are exempt from this, which is, again, so unbelievable because most of the time, traditional media is at fault of spreading false news. Just look at the ABC. How many times have I had to come on here and say the ABC is literally lying to us? In America, MSNBC, CNN, who watches those stations anymore? No one, because everyone's realized that they are pushing an agenda and everyone has caught wind of it now only because there are people online who are speaking out against it. And the second exemption is parody and satire. So, hang on. If a comedian says one thing and an online commentator says the same thing, then the comedian can get away with it, but the online commentator, someone like me, can't. So we can say the same thing, word for word, verbatim, but because this guy is a comedian, it's under satire, and that's completely fine, that's fair game. Like, this law makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And who's to say what satire is, or what comedy is? Maybe I am doing satire right here. I'm now going to be subject to some bureaucrat at ACMA who's going to say, this isn't comedy, this is comedy, this isn't comedy, this is comedy. Sorry, you guys are the least funny people on earth. I'm not trusting you with any sort of humor. This law creates a two-tiered society. People who are free to talk about issues and concepts and ideas, and people who aren't free to talk about them. The media, academics, comedians, the government, they're all exempt. They can go crazy. They can talk about whatever they want. They have protection. Commentators, online commentators, Joe Blogs down the street, we're not allowed to talk about anything. We are being muzzled because we don't have the protections that all of these elites have. It's literally creating a tiered system of freedom of speech in our society. Can you grasp that? Can you believe that we are now in this place in our world that some people have the right to say things, to talk, to voice their opinions, to question things, and some people don't? I'm just thinking about all the issues that I have raised, over the last couple of years that I've been doing this on my TikTok very casually. You know, things like the voice to parliament, talking about trans issues, drag queen story time, all of the COVID stuff, lockdowns, welcome to countries, inappropriate teaching in our classrooms. All of these things are such crucial issues to talk about. They truly are the fabric of our society, and these groups with all their agendas are trying to push us to have a society where all of these things are just normal. And I truly take so much pride in speaking out against them because we need to stop these groups, stop these really radical ideas from becoming commonplace, because that's what's going to happen if no one speaks out against it. And I think that's what they're trying to do. There are too many people now who are woke, i.e., the way that I'm woke, like awake to what's happening to these agendas that are in our world, that are being pushed upon us, that they just need to stop it. And with the internet now, it's really hard to do that. So they're using the law to literally silence us. And it's a scary thing. It's a really scary time, because if they're at the point where they feel that they need to do that, it means that we know too much. We normal people have access to so much more than we used to. So governments need to really try a lot harder to silence us, to keep us under their thumb. And the only way they can do that now is literally by punishing us for speaking. And that's what's happening right now. And it's a scary, scary world to be in.